Wayne, thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be with you, Jenny.
You heard it. Mexico's ambassador to the U.S. now singling out the NRA, saying it needs to do more to stop the flow of illegal guns into Mexico. Are you surprised?
No, I'm not. I mean, the strategy on the part of the Mexican ambassador has been to blame the failures and the corruption and the drug cartels in Mexico on the freedoms of American citizens. And now he's doing it on the organization that protects the freedom of American citizens to own firearms under our Constitution, the National Rifle Association. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, there is an institutional failure in Mexico to deal with the problem of the drug cartels that are as large as foreign armies. They have unlimited resources. There is a huge corruption problem we all know about. I mean, the United States law enforcement will not even work with the Mexican law enforcement or the military before vetting them. There's so much corruption down there. And it's a country that doesn't allow its own citizens to defend themselves with firearms, and it wants to blame their problems on the freedom of American citizens. And it's sad. We Americans need to stand up for our freedoms. Our freedoms are not to blame for the violence perpetrated by drug cartels in Mexico. And it's just a sad attempt by Mexico to blame its failures on the United States.
And you're so right, because as you were saying, the Mexican government, they really need somebody to blame when you look at what's going on internally with their government. And we went down there and we talked to former members of the SWAT team. We talked to Border Patrol officers, and they told us there's generals, there's officers, there's members of the police department. If they defect, they take their guns with them. If they don't, they help them get the guns. But it's all our fault. And I thought it was fascinating, Wayne, that the ambassador said it's a win-win for the NRA to ensure that the NRA is not being criticized. If they do this, if you cooperate with everything that they're asking us to do, all the criticism from the American bashers that we see at the United, that's going to all stop. Who's kidding who?
Yeah, I mean, what you see here is a combination of political dishonesty and agendas linking up with media dishonesty and agendas. And I think it's one of the reasons it's having a profoundly cynical effect on the entire system of governance and why people view the politicians so cynical. I mean, NBC runs a national news story with Richard Engel the other night saying that Mexican drug cartels are coming into the United States and buying 50 caliber machine guns over the counter in American gun stores. I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, every gun owner in the country knows you cannot walk into a gun store in the United States and buy a 50 caliber machine gun over the counter. I mean, and yet that's the type of nonsense that's being perpetrated by the dishonest media in the United States, linking up with the dishonesty of politicians like the Mexican ambassador. I mean, this whole 90% figure they keep saying over and over and over is 90% BS or more. I mean, every police officer and you talk with will tell you that the great bulk of the firearms the Mexican drug cartels are getting with their unlimited money are coming from Russia, they're coming from China, they're coming through Central America, they're coming from defections from the Mexican army, and they're not coming from firearms stores in the United States. I mean, you can't walk into a gun store and buy grenades and RPGs and machine guns and everything else that they're falsely and dishonestly saying is coming from the United States. It's just nonsense. And the Clinton, the Obama people, like Hillary Clinton and President Obama and Eric Holder, because they want to pass more phony gun laws in the United States and reinstate that so-called assault weapons ban, which was a lie and a failure from the start. They're also mouthing those types of dishonest figures, and it's sad. It's not true. And the freedoms of the United States are sure not to blame for the problems in Mexico, and American citizens know that.
And, Wayne, it's so interesting what you're saying, because there was a report yesterday by the Inspector General. You may or may not have seen it, but he's criticizing the ATF's gun runner program. And what I found so fascinating was that as part of the reason they say they're having problems with tracing these guns is because senior Mexican law enforcement officers that were interviewed for this report do not view gun tracing as an important investigative tool. So again, it's our fault, and all the NRA has to do is get involved, and everything's going to be okay. The cartels, the violence, it's all going to stop.
Look, they know in their heart where the great majority of the drug cartels are getting their guns from. On 50 calibers, I mean, there were hundreds and thousands sold to the U.S. government in the 90s that shipped them down to the Mexican government. And I guarantee you that's where they're coming from, that are showing up down there, in addition to the international black market, and as these other sources as I cited. I mean, let me give an example of what's going on. I mean, Mexico, look at places like Juarez, Mexico. I mean, thousands of murders down there. And yet you go right across the border into El Paso with American gun laws and American freedoms. You have one of the lowest crime cities in the United States. I mean, if that doesn't tell you something, look at American laws versus what's going on in Mexico. I mean, it sure isn't the gun laws in the United States that's responsible for what's going on in Mexico. Who should have talked to the United States Congress was not the Mexican ambassador or the Mexican president, but was the family of Rob Krentz out in Arizona, the NRA life member rancher that was shot in the back and killed by these drug cartels. And they should have talked to the United States Congress about the failure of the United States to deal with this problem, to enforce the laws against drug dealers with guns, and to do something about securing the border and protecting American citizens. And I mean, it is a sad state, and you know it, Jenny. You've been down there. I mean, those American families living along the border down there are basically being subjected to a complete lack of security, where the only thing they have to protect themselves is their own firearm.
Yep, and they are truly the front line of defense, because we've got a government that's playing right into the hands of the Mexican government.
Yeah, I mean, Washington, D.C. just turns its back on them and leaves them out there day after day after day, completely on their own, and that is a tragedy in the United States of America. I mean, we have all the laws on the books in the United States to deal with this. It's like when the ICE guys were before the United States Congress testifying. They were asked, do you need more laws? And they said, no, we don't. We simply need to better enforce what we have. And at that same hearing, when ATF was asked about this whole Iron River of guns comment that the Mexican ambassador keeps talking about, the ATF people told them that they couldn't substantiate any of those numbers, and they didn't see anything like that going on. So, I mean, we need to get the truth out there. What's needed is the truth, and then what's needed is the spine and the will to enforce the laws we have to protect our United States citizens that are living in places like southern Arizona from the violence that's coming across the border from a country that has lost control down there, and and has corruption beyond belief.
Yeah, it's for sure, and I think you're right. This is just another chapter. I don't think it's the end either of using our Second Amendment as a scapegoat.
But what the NRA is going to do, I'll tell you what we're going to do, is we're going to get the truth out to the American public. I mean, I know you've been down there. You've put together some amazing documentaries talking to the U.S. law enforcement folks as to what's really going on, that if ABC, NBC, and CBS hadn't lost their journalistic integrity, they would be showing all over the United States. And yet the type of journalism that's truthful that you've been putting together, Jenny, is simply not showing up on the national networks. Instead, they simply mouth this misinformation coming from the Mexican ambassador and try to pump it out there to American citizens. And I'll tell you, I think American citizens are choking on it. I think they are so sick of that type of dishonesty. I think that's one of the reasons you saw what happened in the elections a week or so ago. And I think that they are going to stand up for our freedoms in the United States.
And they always do. And Wayne, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Good talking with you, Jenny.